I know it can be frustrating when you see other stunning pictures online and you wonder, why is my picture not anything like that? I mean, I'm trying my best, but I don't know what it is. Something is missing. We'll fix that in this video. Let's get right into these techniques. The first one is the frame in frame. Now, this technique involves using an element to frame the subject in the scene. The elements can be naturally occurring or man-made, which means you can use a tree to frame something, an arc, a window, just anything that can separate and create depth from the foreground to the background. This technique directs the viewer's eye to the main subject or region. It naturally leads you into the main subject of the scene. It also allows the viewer's eye to focus easily on the subject because it de-emphasizes the less important or distracting elements in the scene. The first example I'll be using in the frame in frame technique is a photo of a shot I did for a brand some years ago. And when you look at this picture, you can see that the feet of the subject is being framed by two wooden slabs from the right and the left side. And when you look at this picture, your eye just goes straight to the feet. Aside from the fact that, okay, the front foot is in focus, that framing done by those two slabs there just makes it more intentional, just makes it more structural. It gives the picture more. And the frame in frame is not only done in portrait, you can do it in any aspect of photography, product photography, portrait photography, street, any aspect of photography. You can do this technique, and this technique really sells this picture. It makes it more pleasing to the eye. It just makes it make more sense, because it's not a bad thing if it's not a frame in frame, but I'm just saying this frame in frame example just makes the picture looks more pleasing to the eye. It's just when you look at this picture, your eye just lands on the shoe, and everything is just symmetrical. It just makes more sense. This is another example of a frame in frame, and like I said earlier, the frame doesn't have to entirely cover the whole picture, because you can see that the shoe and the hand is being framed by this wooden slab again beneath the shoe. The frame is not even covering, it's not covering 80% or even 70% of the picture, but it just gives this distinction. It separates it. That frame occurring in the picture just makes it look a little bit more interesting. It just organizes it. You can see that the clothes at the background here doesn't distract the shoe, because this wooden slab beneath it has given it a frame for your eyes to just focus on it directly. So yeah, the frame in frame is a really interesting technique that you should try out today. The second technique is perspective. The perspective from which you present your picture or photograph to your viewers will greatly influence how they perceive the pictures. Many photographers at the beginning stages usually shoot eye level because it's natural. When you take your camera, you just point it and shoot. But there are other ways to portray the subject or an object in the scene. For instance, shooting a subject from a low angle can portray dominance and authority. Likewise, when you shoot them from a high angle, it can make them look small, it can make them vulnerable. Also, when you go to a beach or a city and you shoot from a high angle, this provides a wider view. It gives you more perspective. You see more things in the frame because of the angle, because of the perspective you're shooting from. So when you want to tell a story, for instance, you want to tell a story about making your subject a dominant figure in the scene, shooting from a low angle is giving the perspective, because the frame is coming from down and the subject is looking down on the scene. It gives this sense of authority and dominance. Also, your perspective can just add variety to your shot. Changing your perspective can just add varieties to your shot. Shooting only eye level can make your shot look boring and repetitive. But when you change the perspective, it gives a fresh eye, it gives a fresh perspective to your viewers, and they will appreciate it more. This picture is another example to buttress my point. The third technique is role of space. The role of space relates to the direction the subject or subjects in your photo is facing or moving towards. If you are taking a photo of a moving car, for instance, there should be more space left in the frame in front of the car than behind it. Or I know you've seen some movies where the subject is talking and there's space in front of the subject. This composition technique implies that the subject is facing it. It subconsciously makes the viewers understand the direction in which the subject is facing or moving. This picture is an example of the role of space technique. When you look at this picture, you can see the boats moving from left to the right hand of the frame, and the photographer composed this in a way that shows the direction in which the boat is moving towards. If I had to crop this picture and eliminate that space in front, the picture will be fine, but the viewer will find it very difficult to understand. But by leaving this space in front, it's a no-brainer. When a viewer looks at this picture, he or she knows that this picture is the boat is going from left to the right hand of the frame, and this is the essence of the rule of space. It gives the viewer an understanding of the direction in which the subject or object is facing or moving towards. The fourth technique is lighting. Lighting can be a very important tool in composing your pictures. When you make a subject or an object a bit more brighter than the other aspects or the other parts of the picture, it naturally draws your viewer because we are naturally drawn to the brightest part of the picture. This picture shows an example of how to light with composition. I shot this picture at a concert some years ago, and when you look at this picture, you can see that the subject, which is the musician holding the mic, is in one of the brightest part of the image. The foreground is dark and the background is a little bit darker than the main subject. The light is mainly focused on the subject, and this is part of how to compose with light, because when you look at this picture, immediately your eyes is drawn to the subject because the subject is in part of the brightest part of the image. So using light to compose your images is another really interesting way is another interesting or fun way to add spice to your image. Because if I shot this image with the same level of brightness, it will be okay. The subject will stand out, maybe because of the depth of field, but this using light creating depth with the lights just makes it way more interesting, way more fun, way more engaging for the viewer, and just gives the image a more professional or a more cinematic look. This is another example of composing with light. This image was taken by a very talented photographer, Ebuka Modi, and when you look at this picture, you can see that again the subject is in the brightest part of the image. The light focused at the middle where the subject is. You can see the other part of the image, but once your eye meets this picture, you immediately just get drawn to that center because that is the brightest part of the image. So by using light to compose your frame, by using light to compose a scene, is a really professional and fun way to make your picture stand out and different from an everyday shot that you just take. Now, a picture can carry one or more technique. It doesn't necessarily have to be one technique at a time. You can shoot from a perspective and still use lighting to compose your picture. This is an example of a shot that can carry one or more composition techniques. This is a spec ad I shot for Coca-Cola, and when you look at this picture, the jacket, the black jacket, or I think it's the deep blue jacket behind serves as a frame. You can see how it frames the can of Coca-Cola, and I included the lights by the right side, the reflector, and that made
this can of Coca-Cola, the brightest part of this image, you can see now that we've combined the frame in frame and the lighting technique to make this picture look to achieve the results in this picture. So don't be afraid to experiment with one or more or two or more composition techniques.
Okay, at the beginning of this video, I promised to include a bonus point on how you can enhance these techniques. But I included two. First one is to do it with intent. When you are composing your pictures, your composition technique should be done with an intention. When you are using the perspective shot and you shoot from a low angle, why are you doing it? Why did you shoot that picture from a low angle? Why did you shoot the picture from a high angle? Why did you put a frame in frame? Or why is the subject more brighter than other aspects? Because once you don't understand the intention of that composition technique, it may mislead your viewers. For instance, now when you make a supporting cast more brighter than the main subject, you are taking away the attention of the viewer from the subject to the supporting cast. So you must understand that this composition technique should be applied with an intent of showing or telling the story to the viewer. When you want to use a perspective shot, understand that, okay, I want to make my viewer look vulnerable. So shooting from a high angle it makes more sense. I want to make my subject look dominant and have this authoritative figure. Then I'm shooting from a low angle. I want to show the viewers a vast space. So shooting from a bird eye view or another kind of angle will make that more reasonable. And the second one is practice. Practicing all these techniques will make you get better at it. Just take one at a time and go out and intentionally look for a frame in a frame and shoot it, or intentionally look for how to tell a story from a perspective, or intentionally look for how to use lighting to guide the viewer's eye to the subject. Whatever it is, just make sure you put all these things into practice, because without practice, everything I've said in this video will just be a rant. Once you apply these techniques in your photography, you will notice a significant change in your pictures. And in fact, maybe Nike can even call you like, oh wow, we just saw. I'm kidding, but I mean, taking these techniques and applying them will make your pictures go from this level to this level instantly. If you found this video helpful, do not forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.